John, welcome. And for our audience, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and the role of the Board Leadership Center at KPMG.
Yeah, Sam, great to be with you today. Thanks for asking me to join. My name's John Rodi. I'm a partner with KPMG, and I also lead our Board Leadership Center, which think of that as KPMG's corporate governance center of excellence, where we look to bring insights, perspectives, and help board members possibly think about issues differently with the sole purpose of helping them execute their responsibilities as board members to the best of their ability.
How has the kind of responsibilities and the composition of corporate boards changed over, the last few years, in your opinion?
These last, I'll say 4 years have really been monumental changes in the increased level of board responsibilities, just with the confluence of risks that companies have to deal with, from geopolitical risks, from um, cybersecurity risks, climate risk, other issues. And I think that's really increased the time commitment that board members need to spend on these issues. And it's also increased the level of expertise and skill sets that boards need in order to manage these risks and oversee the companies with which they're charged to oversee.
That's quite a bit of added responsibility because the dimensionality changes quite dramatically of what the board has to consider, in terms of its governance, et cetera.
For
Now,
sure.
obviously, if we're anywhere close to sort of talking to boards or C-suites, management teams, Gen AI is the topic du jour, right? That has popped up in conversations. How do you see these changes impacting the development and deployment of AI technologies at the board level? What kind of conversations are they having? What is the kind of what is changing in terms of conversations that the board is having?
Maybe a few key points to highlight is that there's certainly no shortage of laws and regulations that are either going into place or soon to be going into place, whether that's White House executive orders, whether that's state laws, whether that's the European Union AI Act. And I think how these new technologies impact the individual and impact the customer, should drive how companies deploy AI. And that starts with a sound framework with some core
Yeah.
principles in place that on fairness and privacy and transparency and data integrity, reliability. That needs to underline or underscore how a company is using these new technologies. And last point I'll make is I think it's important for companies to also think about data ethics, and that's not just how individuals or customers' data is being used, but what does the customer expect, or how does the customer expect their data to be used by a company? So having that angle could be one of the questions that a board member asks.
You talked about the responsibility of the board and an organization with regards to responsible AI, the ethics around it. Is that the same for cybersecurity and data privacy?
Yeah, I think it's a very similar topic. And another item that gets mentioned at probably every board meeting that I attend, you mentioned the new regulations, which was the new SEC rules that went into place late in 23, which not only requires company to disclose material cyber incidents after a certain number of days, but importantly, also requires companies to make disclosures of their risk management processes so that third parties and investors can understand the processes that companies have in place to manage cyber risk. And there's also sector specific regulations, mostly focusing on the financial services industry, that are being issued by the Department of Homeland Security and various states. And the data privacy regs are just expanding of and putting new requirements on how personal data is being handled. And I think the underlying need here is for companies to develop controls and processes to comply with these laws and regulations.
What should a board be thinking about in terms of understanding potential data-related risks and set appropriate expectations with management reporting?
Yeah, I think it starts with a series of maybe points for board members to consider. One is certainly active engagement with the management team to understand how data is being collected. and how data is being used. I think it's understanding as a board member those regulatory and reputational risks that are inherent with data collection, data usage, data storage. Also setting expectations with management for what an acceptable level of risk is, and then also setting expectations with the management team on what gets elevated to the board. Perhaps there's new regulations that are coming out that could impact how a company processes data, that could impact the company's product line. So again, setting the expectations for how a board is informed.
Do you foresee or do you already see a change in board composition in terms of adding capabilities besides the core capabilities that are expected of a board around some of these technologies, some of these capabilities?
I'll say not yet, because I think it's the risk is that if a board moves toward adding specialty skills or specialized skills, that could be too much of a niche skill
Mhm.
that could take away from the broader business experience that's certainly needed on a board. And I think the risk of adding niche expertise skills can one expand the board, possibly dilute it, and ultimately hurt the overall objective of oversight. So I think for areas such as Gen AI, for example, we're seeing boards look to third parties more to help educate them, perhaps help them ask the right questions, which is ultimately what a board member's role comes down to, versus getting too specialized and maybe losing some of that broader business acumen that's very important for a board.
Excellent. John, thank you so much for being part of our conversation today. It is invaluable to hear about your experience and how this sort of resonates at the highest levels of an organization. So thank you for being here, John.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Sam. I enjoyed it.